Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Now, in September 2022, I was lucky enough to board a flight to Vietnam, where I'd be jumping in swamps, climbing up hills, and taking on one of the toughest challenges with an entire group of incredible, crazy, quirky, amazing, and inspiring individuals who I'm lucky enough to call my friends, as we all went over and took part in SAS Who Dares Wins. Now, with any kind of TV production, they are always constrained to fit the absolute best bits into a short window of time. So as you won't be surprised to hear, there is so much more to these individuals than meets the eye. So on this mini series of podcasts, you get to listen in as I catch up with this incredible group of people. We discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly as it comes to SAS Who Dares Wins, our favorite instructors, our biggest challenges, and also learn a little bit more about what drives them, what inspires them, and how this journey was for them. It's been so much fun reminiscing and catching up. So if you are sitting comfortably, let's buckle up for safety and get in there with today's episode. I'll see you on the other side. Hello.
Hold on. I've got earphones and I've not got them in my ears.
It's okay.
Hello.
Hello, lovely. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How's
Good.
being home?
Being home is amazing. Today I feel so much better. It's taken a couple of days, hasn't it? Here we go. It's been a couple of days just to get feet back on the floor and feel like I'm back in the room. It's
What was it like when you were coming back? Because like you see, we all had such a big, weird travel, and we were lucky enough to sort of travel back together. But what did you think it was going to feel like when you got back? Because everyone was talking about it, and they all, like the psychologist said, oh, you might have this and you might have that, and your families or your partners have not been through what you've been through. Did you resonate with any of that, or was it all just like, no, I'll be fine?
I think in my head I was like, no, I'm going to be absolutely fine. I'll just crack on, pick up where I was. But in reality, it was like I just couldn't do that. My brain wasn't with it at all. It was like I was on a complete different planet, and nobody kind of could understand what I'd been through. And equally, I was like really struggling to kind of understand what they'd been through without me. Because I've never been away for so long. I've literally never been away for more than like, I think a night or 2 nights. So to go, and if I've been away, I've been with the kids, or I've taken the kids away. So I've been away from Steve, but not necessarily on my own. So it's been really bizarre, really hard.
What made you want to do it then?
Why did I want to do it? To prove I could do it.
Who? To yourself? Or?
Yeah, to myself more than anything. Yeah, I think I was quite selfish in wanting to do it, because I don't think I had anything to necessarily prove, or I don't feel like I've had anything to necessarily prove to anybody else. Just to me, really. And whether that's some kind of deep-rooted self-doubt, which I'm probably inclined to think it might be.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do you lean towards that?
I'm not sure. I think
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents, and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
I think because I've always just felt like I probably couldn't do something like that, or I couldn't, I always feel like I'm just on the cusp of like succeeding at things. Objectively, I know that's not necessarily true, but somewhere inside, that's what it still feels like. So,
but in order to have that belief, your mind has to. I mean, we're great sales machines in our own head, aren't we? We kind of compile evidence to prove something, or they always say, seek and you shall find, as much as that's sat in a religious context. Our minds are great. So I always say, if you ask your mind a shit question, you'll get a shit answer. And it'll be like, why can't I do this? And it'll say, well, because you crap, Pete, because you're a fucking loser, because you were bullied at school, because no one fucking likes you, because you're a bit of a fraud, you're not really as fit as you think you are. Your mind will find reasons to justify whatever your thought process is. It's a bit like you say, well, why is my partner ignoring me? Well, it's because they love me. It's because they're in love with somebody else. It's because they hate me. It's because we're a failure. Or do you know what I mean? Your mind kind of finds, what evidence did you have that was so strongly supporting this fact that you were like, oh, I don't know if I could do it.
Oh gosh, I think it's like a self-perpetuating doom. I say that because I've done like, quite a few of my sort of coaching qualifications and things with the riding. So I'll just jam you off a bit more. For the riding teaching and the qualifications. And so I hate anything where I have to sort of like put myself out there or have to take the forefront of like I have to be in the spotlight. I hate it. It's like, for me, it's the hardest thing. And I've found a couple of times I've gone to take some of the coaching type exams, and I've pretty well talked myself out of being successful before I've started. And I absolutely say that because, and then I've kicked myself after, because you sort of you go through the exam, didn't necessarily pass it. I failed a couple along the way. And then you just think, well, why? Because it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that hard. But I've basically gone in such a negative frame that I just can't do it. I can't succeed. I can't be where I want, I can't get to that level that I want to get to, because I'm not going to be able to manage in the exam, or and then you sort of talk yourself out of it. And then once I've been and I've had a go at it, possibly failed, I'll go back and I'll absolutely fly through. So the capability is there, but it's something that just holds me back from achieving.
Have you got any siblings?
Yes. I've got an older sister.
What does she do? You don't have to mention her name or anything.
Oh, no, so no, she won't mind. No, I work quite closely with my sister, actually. We work together got our own horse rug wash business that we work together. And she does a lot of freelance equestrian type work. Okay. She hasn't really sort of gone down the route of sort of qualifications in the same way that I have. She seems quite happy doing what she's doing. She doesn't seem to have this sort of like real drive that I have.
But you rode together, I'm assuming, when you were kids. You both learned together.
Yeah, we were pretty close together. Still are really close. Quite competitive when we were younger.
So when did that seed of doubt start? When you were younger, did you used to compete against each other? Was there a person or an event when you had some tragic failure? When did that start?
I can't really put my finger on it. I feel like it's always been there. I'm trying to think if I sort of felt particularly competitive against my sister, or that she'd do particularly better than me. I always felt like I wasn't quite as good as her, but I don't necessarily think it came from that. My dad was a Yorkshireman, and I don't know whether he was quite like, if you're going to go out there, you've got to give it your best, you've got to win. And if you like, I don't think he necessarily understood horse riding. You'd come back and he'd be like, oh, I got a second place today. He's like, well, why didn't you win? Even though it was probably quite an achievement to get the second place. Yeah. He was very much like, you've got to get out there and you've got to give it your best shot. And you've got to try and win. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it properly. So yeah, I don't know whether actually applying for the SAS thing was because I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And I could do it without necessarily failing first.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure how I feel now I've come out of it, whether or not I feel I've achieved that or not.
There's a funny aspect there. I mean, have you ever read a book called The Marshmallow Test?
No.
Okay, no. I'd advise getting it. I'll send you a link to it afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
The Marshmallow Test is a study that was done a long time ago. It was done predominantly with children, and it speaks a lot about, in aspects of the book, around outcome-based versus effort-based. And I'd be interested into like kind of what approach you've done with your children now, because I can absolutely relate to that aspect of feeling like if I'm not first, I'm last. Do you know what I mean? Whereas that can breed various things within children. For example, in the book itself, they speak about So they give a bunch of kids a maths test, a relatively benign maths test, and they say, do it, see how you go. And then when they're finished, one half of the group, they reward them for their outcome. So they say, you got all of them right. You're really smart. You're really amazing. Congratulations. And the other half of the group, they say, wow, you tried really hard on that. You worked for so long. Really impressed with the effort. That was amazing. You must have really put everything you had into that. And they continually perpetuate their behavior with the outcomes of the tests. And what starts to happen is the people that you put on a pedestal as achieving the outcome all of the time, a few things happened. One, like when they were offered to do a harder test, a lot of the achiever kids turned it, or a higher percentage of the achiever kids turned it down versus the reward based, because the potential is if you identify yourself as someone that always has to get it right, always has to be first, you are less inclined to put yourself in a position where you might fail, because it will ruin that identity of I am the special child, I am the chosen one, I am the one that gets everything right. Whereas the effort-based kids are more inclined to try harder things and try for longer as well. They timed how long people would attack a question for, and the kids that were effort-based reward would try for so much longer. And the third aspect of it was as well, when they give them the opportunity to mark their own papers, the kids that were given the personality of always being right were more inclined to lie about their results. They would say,
my
I
goodness.
got
Okay.
them all right. Whereas the other kids were like, oh no, I only got 7 or only got 6. And it's been something I've really adopted with my kids, where, you know, Lily will run over and she'll give me a picture, or she'll give me a thing, or she'll show me a test. And I won't look at the mark. I'll almost take it out of our sphere of view and tell me how hard it was. Tell me how hard you worked on it. And I don't try and make it too obvious, but I always try and make it about how hard you've worked, how much effort you've put into it. And I'm not one of those parents who's like, oh, winning doesn't matter. No, fucking winning matters. You know, life rewards winners. But you handicap yourself if you're only willing to try hard enough, if it's almost not a guaranteed, but if there's a high likelihood of success, and you're less inclined to do things like you've done, which is put yourself in a position where you're like, I think I can do this, but I've no idea, you know, I know I'm going to have to try really hard for it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, 100%, absolutely. And it's interesting when you're talking about it, because as a riding coach, you know, the effort-based result and the journey that you go on with your horse is very much something I'm an advocate for, as opposed to going in and coming out with the red rosette, or you know, like the winner's rosette. However, for me, so that's what I would be an advocate of. But for me, I maybe still have this sort of competitive streak that I want to win, you know.
Oh, 100%.
But yet on the coaching side, it's all about the journey. So it's interesting, isn't it, how potentially you can, as sort of a coach or as a person, you can want to believe in one method, which is sort of the journey related, but actually trying to train yourself to practice what you preach can be very, very difficult.
Was this the saying like fall off a horse 7 times, you're a real cowboy, or something like that?
Yeah, a real rider. Yeah, absolutely.
You're a real, you know, because
you got to fall off so many times.
You don't get it unless you're willing to have that aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But that competitive streak's an important part to it as well, though, and it's trying to find that middle ground. I mean, the course that we've both gone on, the recruitment selection thing and everything, is a funny one, because I remember before I went on it, you know, various people said, "Oh, you know, I hope you win," or "I hope you're first," and it was not a defense mechanism, or not like I was trying to communicate with people, you know, it's a course that you pass or you fail.
Yeah.
So multiple people can pass it. There is no winning this.
Yeah.
There is, and that's a bit of a reframing for people, and that's not for me. You know, I was loving some of the challenges, and I was loving being out front and being the first to finish and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But that wasn't out of intention. It was just out of just trying my personal hardest. And I wouldn't have. I mean, there's 1 or 2 of the challenges that I like failed, like the walking over the thing at the top of the thing, fell on my ass, and you know, all that sort of stuff. That didn't diminish my spirit, because some people nailed it, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting, because when I went into it, at no point did I think, do you know what, I really, really, really want to win this. And I think that was potentially part of my downfall in the end, or my, you know, the reason that I came out in the end anyway, because actually for me, with that course, it was about achieving and finding out about myself. And obviously I've done a lot of reflecting on that since I've come out, because basically I've come out physically intact. There's like physically there's nothing wrong with me. I could have carried on. So it's been really, really hard. But I think I had come to the end of my emotional kind of like limit. I sort of made a call to.
What were those straws that, not straws that broke the camel's back, but when you say you come to your, because I think that's been a correlating factor with a few of the recruits that I've spoken with, this aspect of almost cognitive load had reached a boiling point.
Yeah, and I think for me, because obviously I've spent a lot of time thinking of it, and I had a little moment on the plane. You're sort of saying about the plane coming back, and I was just sort of sat, and I obviously just going over it, and then I was just like, oh my, what am I doing? I'm crying again. This is ridiculous. I'm sat on my own. But what it was realizing that for me, at this point in my life, my family is the most important to me, and I wanted to be home. I wanted to be back with them. So yes, homesick in a way, not, but also like, I just felt a little bit like I've had enough. I need to be with the people that really, really, really care about me. I want to be caring for them, which obviously I can't really when I'm the other side of the world. And actually I wanted to know what they were doing and what was happening, and like, because that's my work, that's my world. And it really surprised me, because I thought that actually I'd cope absolutely fine with being away, because it comes to an end, doesn't it? You're not away forever. And I knew at some point I'd be heading home, but essentially for me it was I just needed to be around like my people, my team.
100%. Like your little tribe.
Much as I absolutely,
no, it doesn't take away from the team or anything like that.
Not at all.
Your tribe.
That's it. My tribe, whatever. And that was sort of the realization that actually this is like my limit. So although physically absolutely fine, mentally I don't think I could have carried on. Although I do keep kicking myself and think if I'd just stayed one more night, maybe I'd have just felt a little bit better in the morning and I'd have been fine. But in that moment, at that time, I made in my head a rational decision that actually, do you know what? Enough. I need to go. I need to be out of here. I don't actually want to be in this situation anymore. As exciting as all the physical stuff was, because I absolutely loved all of that. And I was sort of kicking myself a little bit. I didn't get to carry on with some of the challenges, which I really, really wanted to do. I just needed to be out there. Just needed my team back, my life back.
One really unique thing I wanted to talk to you about, because it's something that when we were having discussions in there really correlated with my wife, with my partner, was this aspect of almost rediscovery from a mum perspective. Now, being a mum is, whilst it's really important to you, it's also only one part of who you are. And I think when you said that aspect there before about being a little bit selfish, we have lots of negative connotations attached to selfishness, but actually it's not a bad word, because I always say, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill yourself up first. You can only help your family from a position of strength, mentally, physically, and everything like that. And mums are terrible examples of the fact that you just by nature of what you have to do, you sacrifice everything. You sacrifice your body first and foremost. Often for some women, it's their finances and their personality, their friendship groups, and you kind of rebuild all of it around this new seed, around this new place, and all of your friends and it can for some become 80, 90, 95% of their identity. I mean, I know my wife really struggled with that when she kind of forgot what her hobbies were, and she rode as a child with her older sister, funnily enough. And we've got horses now and all that sort of stuff. But I remember when she first had children, she'd never owned horses up until that point, until we met and we got one. But it was like, I can't see myself as somebody that would do that, because she'd lost who she was. And I don't know if that correlates to you. I know it's been a common factor for a lot, because your boys are still quite young, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're 15 and 13. So, they're old enough to potentially survive without me.
In theory.
Which is in theory, yeah. I'm not sure what their rooms would look like at the end of that. But I think in terms of sort of identity, I think what it really has made me realise is that I actually really, really, really want to be there as a mum. And that I possibly spend too much time doing things that aren't mum related or parent related.
Okay.
like this morning, obviously I'm back now. I've been out watching the boys play their hockey matches, and normally I don't really get a chance to do that on a Saturday morning because I'm normally working most Saturday mornings, because obviously my riding coaching is people's leisure time. So I'm often, when the kids are doing their stuff, I'm off doing my teaching, and my husband sort of stepped in to go and do things like the hockey matches. But the benefits of being there this morning, I just stood there watching. This is just brilliant. I've actually got a bit of time now before I go back to proper work, and I'm just here, just experiencing this with the kids. Watching, just taking them to hockey and watching them play, and then going back to the tees after, chatting with the other parents. And for me, I think because I've always been quite independent and wanted to make my own way and make my own money and pay my own way, etc. I've maybe got a little bit too focused on that and actually missed the point that it's not a bad thing to be mum and be at home and look after your children.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've probably come round, like almost like maybe I've done my identity bit. I've got all my coaching qualifications. I do the team chasing with the riding. People know me for that. I've gone off and I've done this crazy course. But actually, if what I've learned from it is that that's all great, but it's still nice to be mum. Like you can still, there's nothing wrong with being mum. I have my own things. I can go and find my own things. So maybe I've sort of look at it a slightly different way because I've been so independent and just doing my own thing and finding my own way, that actually turning it around a little bit is not necessarily a bad thing to be mum. So
well,
yeah,
it's
possibly.
only for a finite period of time, isn't it? Unlike a career you might do for 10, 20 years or something like that. The time where your children actually want to be around you is quite a short one.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Like 15 now, like my eldest 15 now, and already, we're talking about going away in October for half term. And he's like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to. And you're like, what do you mean you don't want to? And, how can you be at that age now where, you don't want to come on holiday? But I get it. I do understand. And it does make me wonder whether I've almost done the independent thing and now I just want to just be mum. Whereas a lot of people do think, like a lot of people lose their identity as a parent. And maybe I've already got my identity and I'm happy to be the parent again.
Well, like you say, it's only going to be a short period of time that you'll have that moment with you, but it sounds like you've got all the tools in places that when that moment does come, you won't find yourself almost hollow, which is something that some people can find when they fill that space up in their life with someone that then no longer has a reliance for them. So how did you handle the factor of like being around strangers and sleeping with 20 strangers? Was that a difference for you at all? Or?
Oh my gosh. So honestly, I was the biggest, I've always been like, nobody can see me naked. Nobody can see me with no clothes on. I'm absolutely never going to even consider going to the toilet where, like next door to somebody. So honestly, this is like, Pete, this is so out of my comfort zone. It was ridiculous. And, but actually none of that really bothered me when I was there. I thought it would. And it was one of the things where, when I sort of told my family that I was going, and they were like, oh my God, how are you going to cope with that? And I was like, oh, I'm not really sure. But actually, when I was there, you just got on with it, didn't you? It's like, actually, do you know what? I've seen it all before.
Yeah.
You can, although there's cameras like everywhere, isn't there? Literally everywhere. I think there was one time I was taking my sports bra off and I was like, oh God, I've just done that right in front of that camera. I hope they edit that bit out because that's not going to be a good look. But yeah, and just living with people now, obviously after, I didn't stay in obviously that long, but after a few days, people were starting to get a little bit tetchy with each other, weren't they? They were just starting to see a few chinks in the armor. And a
couple of vibrations, yeah.
Yeah. And that didn't really bother me that much at all. You could sort of see it happening, but I was able to sort of stay outside of that.
I think you and I are at different stages of our life as well. We're not in our 50s, 60s or anything like that, but there were a lot of recruits quite a bit younger than us who were just in a different headspace as well, I think. And probably hadn't had some of the life experiences that we'd had, not for better or worse. It just gives you a different perspective, and things trigger you less. And like you say, you're from a Yorkshire background, you live on a farm, you have a much more realistic sense of what is hard or what isn't hard, or how people speak to each other and stuff like that. It doesn't mean you're dropping F-bombs every 2 seconds, but you were able to ride over a lot of a lot of that some other people I think found difficult being in such a close environment.
Yeah, no, I agree definitely. And I've got a really good friend who's at a livery yard, and like a similar sort of environment where you're around people that you don't necessarily know that well, but you're sort of like forced together. And she sort of viewed it. She said she views it as an episode of Coronation Street. So I went very much in with that, like be on the act, just view it, and it's just all the drama that's going on, but don't get sort of sucked into it. Which, I mean, as I say, I wasn't in there that long, so whether I'd still be feeling the same if I was still in there now, I don't know. But
well, I think you nearly did half of the course.
Yeah, true. So I keep forgetting that.
No, you did, absolutely. What did you find the climate like in the country, and the leeches and the spiders and all of the heat?
So I'm of the ilk of person that would go and check my bedroom to see if there's a spider in there before I would go to sleep. And my husband will tell you on one occasion I did wake up in the middle of the night having a nightmare and tried to jump out the upstairs bedroom window, and he had to literally stop me doing it. So I haven't come from a background of I've come from a background of a bit of fear of all the creepy crawlies and everything, although it didn't really bother me when I was out there. I wasn't particularly bothered about the leeches or the ticks, because I'd already knew that we were going to the jungle, so I sort of already processed that in my head. It's just right, I just got to deal with it. And when we did that tunnel task where we went down through the tunnel, and they basically put the fear of God into you, didn't you? And told you that everything was going to kill you, and then go down the tunnel because it's all down there, and you're basically going to die by the time you come out the other side. I just went really quick through and just thought, right, just throw myself at it, through the other side and out the other side. But it bothered me less than I thought it would. A lot less than I thought it would. The climate itself was pretty tough going. I mean, the heat it's the humidity, wasn't it, more than anything? The heat was copable. It was the humidity and the fact you just couldn't cool down. So that was the tough part. And like living in your damp clothes all the time was a little bit uncomfortable, but not insurmountable.
No.
But the heat was pretty intense, and knowing where your body limit is in that heat. And actually, that was really interesting for me, was just saying, right, okay, well, this is what it feels like to be dehydrated and to be absolutely exhausted. And, like, this is when my body needs fuel. And then because obviously there wasn't a massive amount of fuel or food that you were given, but you could see it, you could feel it just working and get you going again. So that was really interesting for me. And actually how little you can get. I mean, we still ate fine, didn't we, in the first days, but there was no extra. That was it.
And also, taking out all that junk, like for anybody that drinks tea or coffee or, has a lot of other stuff in their world. It's astonishing how much you can then really think to yourself, you know what, my body's performing at quite a high rate without all the other bullshit and all the other mess and all the other stuff I tend to throw into it on a day-to-day basis, telling myself I need it and it's essential.
Yeah, absolutely. And essentially all we were doing was just carbohydrate and protein, wasn't it? There wasn't much fat in there, I don't think. And
just water. That's it.
And water was fine. And my skin had never been clearer, when you're like, it should be. And I was like, oh, I've not even got, it was amazing. But your body took what it needed from it, didn't it? And survived with the essential.
How did you find the activities, and did you have a favorite one that you did?
I had a worse one. The worst one was that scaffolding one. I pretty well talked myself out of that, I think, when by the time I got to the top, because I was the very last one to go. So I'm kind of kicking myself a bit, but at the same time, I keep having to reality check myself and say, well, you know what, you got over halfway and I didn't think I'd even get out. So, out off the platform. So,
how did you step out of the platform? Because do you have a fear of heights at all?
No, I don't have a fear of heights. It was the wobbling. So there must have been a fear in there of the height and the fall or something, but it was the wobbling, the up and down. And I like to think, because the thing that you had to step over, the step in the middle, had moved along, I like to give myself the excuse that because it had moved along a bit, it was really wobbly. Because I think somebody had landed on it.
Yes. It was so when I was like, I mean, I'd lost some weight and stuff for it, but I was still like 18 stone. I think I was the heaviest guy there. That thing was bouncing like nobody's business when I was up there.
I know.
And I thought I'd smash straight through it because I heard the whole thing split. But
I bet you had a good bruise for it anyway.
Yeah, I did have a big black line across my bum when I checked it the other day.
So I didn't particularly enjoy that one, but then I sort of got myself together because I'd got halfway across and actually I thought I'd done better than I thought I would. So I didn't mind the tunnel. I really enjoyed the hiking that we did, that the up with the rucksacks
Yeah.
up and back the hill. Yeah, I enjoyed that because that's like my sort of thing, and actually I almost wish there'd been a bit more of that.
I'd have loved
Um,
that. Yeah, I could have done that all day long. Some people really struggled with the weight of the packs, but
yeah,
had you done much training for that?
I've done a fair bit, not masses, but enough, and I'm quite strong anyway, in terms of carrying stuff on my back, and I think just with what I do day to day, so I
Yeah,
didn't
horse
find
riding
it.
and life on a farm is lifting and
Or
moving,
just
isn't it?
mucking out the
Ultimately.
stables
Yeah.
and lifting the water buckets and all the rest. So and I love being outdoors and walking and
Yeah.
running and all that kind of stuff. Task wise, I didn't particularly enjoy the one where we went through the woods. I managed to get myself blown up going through the wood.
I think everybody
And we were
did. The
in a
idea of that
team of
was
four.
everybody dies. That was
Yeah,
there was no
and
making it through that.
no, and I felt a little bit disappointed with the course actually, because whilst I know you're on SAS Who Dares Wins, it's like it should you should expect the unexpected,
Yeah.
but I still don't think that we had quite enough knowledge to help us out. And I'm sure, we don't come from a military background. We literally had like 10 minutes or 20 minutes in the parade yard walking on, in formations.
Yeah.
And then I was stuck sort of out on point. And you and you're sort of expecting something to happen, but I had no idea what. So I was a bit disappointed in myself, but at the same time, it was like, well, you know what, you weren't going to pass that anyway, because I mean, I
Yeah.
think the team did pass, but I did get blown up, so I can't really classify it as a pass. That was the whole point of that exercise, was that you just got to open your eyes and see what's going on, and you got to take something from it. And they did say at the end, at the end of the day, none of you had a flipping idea of what you were doing, so which we wouldn't, because we're not military trained.
No, absolutely.
So that one I was a bit sort of disappointed in myself, but also a little bit in the course, because I think
Felt like you were set up to
a
fail.
little bit more knowledge and we'd have
Yeah.
been great. And then all of the physical stuff, the physical sort of beastings, as
Yeah.
they sort of like to call it, I actually quite enjoyed all of those, because I
Yeah.
was like in my element, because that's where my training had been. So I was like, come on then, bring it on. What what else
Yeah,
what else would you like me
absolutely.
to do?
Just lots of
And I
calisthenics and
really,
all that sort of stuff. I could have done that for
yeah,
days.
yeah. And you know what? A couple of years ago, I couldn't even do a press up. So for me, I was really proud that I managed to hold my own in those. And actually, I did all right. I felt like I was, I wasn't quite catching up with you, but I was somewhere near the front, which I was really
Well, yeah, yeah.
proud of. So I'm taking that definitely as a positive. Tasks wise, they were amazing. I mean, coming off that waterfall, I had to be a
That
moment, and
waterfall
I
was
did stop.
incredible. Yeah.
Oh, incredible. I hope I hope we get a picture or something of it. But I did have a little stop halfway down, and I just thought, I don't care if I'm on this course or not. I'm just going to stop and just take a moment just to look, because this is, if you
That
don't
is the sort of
appreciate it.
stuff you see. That's the screensaver on on your blooming computer. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
It really is that
yeah,
photo. That's the stuff that's
yeah,
in calendars and stuff like it. I remember when we looked back over it and we mapped where it was. It was something like 100 and something meter waterfall. It was bloody huge.
it
You
was
know,
it was
it was
huge.
at
I mean, I don't
least
know how
something
high it
like
was,
40
but
or 50 floors if it had been a
yeah,
high-rise building. And yeah, it was absolutely incredible. Such a beautiful environment to be able
yeah.
to do it in.
And I think you've got to come away from a course like that and just think, right, that was like, that is your money can't buy. That was truly amazing and beautiful. And I think you've got to come away with the positives, haven't you, from that?
How
You'd be
did you
mad not to. But
how did you find the DS and did you have a favorite?
the the DS. Oh my gosh, how did I find them? Disappointing,
Okay.
which is
In what respect?
because do you know what? I think I thought at some point, somewhere down the line, I think I thought that yes, they're going to shout at you and all the rest, but I think I thought I'd see a little bit more of the sort of like the coaching side, or the motivating side
Hmm.
of them. But I felt like I saw a lot of they were quite negative.
Hmm.
Um, and I get that, and I was expecting that. So that's not that I wasn't expecting it at all, but I think in my mind I just thought there must be something that motivates you, because I think it just felt like it was a little bit negative. all the time.
Okay.
But then I suppose maybe there was a few comments like I think there was one day we went. I think it was when I was
Lead
uh,
recruit.
lead recruit, and he said, "Oh,
You were the best at that. You were
oh,
very
thank
good
you."
at that. No,
Well,
you
thank.
were, because
I,
like you had that sort of kind candor is what I always try and talk to people about. It's like
yeah,
you can be assertive and almost blunt at times without being rude, because people don't think there's a connect. They're like, oh no, I'm not really that sort of person. I can't really, sort of get people together and hold them accountable to stuff. I'm like, it doesn't make you a dick. It makes you
no,
good at what you do.
yeah,
And it helps
yeah.
people as well, because it helps everybody get into a line. We like structure.
Yeah, and to be honest, I did actually quite enjoy being the lead recruit. I think somebody said to me afterwards, "Oh, was it because you were the lead recruit that you sort of handed your number in?" And actually, it wasn't, because I
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
quite enjoyed it. And I think I had to do press ups twice. The first time was because I called my Berg in a bag, and he's like, "Right, 10 press ups," and I can remember
Yeah.
just doing my press ups, just grinning at myself, thinking, "Oh, you idiot, Anne," you know. But it was fine. And then the second time was because somebody had left their clothes out, hanging out, and it was like, "What's this, a fucking summer camp?" I was like,
Yeah.
"No," so he told me off for that. But I didn't mind that. That was just like, that was fine. And there was one time there when I think they sent me in to go and get everyone out for dinner, and he said, "Oh, dinner's ready, you've earned it." And we're going back into the room then and sort of saying, "Right, come on, we've earned it."
Yeah.
That was really nice. And actually it was, I sort of say they didn't do anything positive, but it was just the little things, wasn't it, that
Yeah.
actually that made you feel a bit better. And just trying to pick up and motivate people, because they said to me, "You're all fucking miserable. Why are you all so miserable?" And he said to me, "Go and get everyone out and get everyone a bit happier," or something like, I think, I can't remember exactly what he said, but something along those lines.
Yeah.
And yeah, so maybe there was those slight positive comments from the DS, but as a general feel, it did feel really, really negative. And it's like, is that how it is, like, all the time in the military? Because God, that's a bit of an oppressive environment to work in.
Well,
But
I imagine during selection, I mean, we've had a few special forces operators, we've had lots of Marines and stuff like that on the podcast. And certainly when you're going through a selection process, yeah, they've said it pretty much is like that non-stop, because it's selection at the end of the day. It's not the rest of your career. Once you've earned that, and once people, because they always say you fall to the level of your training, you don't rise to the level of the situation necessarily.
right, yeah,
So you've got to ingrain those things really well, and you've got to be able to operate in the worst case scenario. If everyone around you is suffering, if everyone's being a dick, you shouldn't be relying on their optimism or their reinforcement or their motivation, positivity, or adulation in order to get you over the line. You need to be able to get yourself over the line first and foremost. So yeah, I think, having spoken to a number of people, that's what it's like, certainly during the selection phase. But I wouldn't.
yeah,
I know a lot of people stay part of the emergency services, stay part of the military and the armed services, because they do love the camaraderie. So I do believe that once you're in, the dynamic certainly shifts. And people wouldn't be doing it for so long if that wasn't the case. But for us, in the very brief period we were part of it, yeah, I think it was a lot of that.
yeah. And potentially not having any military experience in the background. And I suppose before you go for selection, SAS selection, potentially you're going to have been in the military and gone at least through basic training.
Yeah.
And so to go straight in at that level of, like, yelling at and I didn't mind the yelling. It's not that I minded it, but to go straight in at that level is pretty, it was pretty intense. So yeah, in terms of the DS, and it was intense, it was negative, it was everything I think I expected, and probably a bit more. And yeah, probably one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't sort of get to the stage where they sort of praised me for anything. But that was my call.
So coming out of it, you said like you've had this sort of reaffirmation of how incredibly important people close to you are and stuff like that. Is there anything else that you feel like has changed you or switched your perception, or has it fanned the flames to go on and do more stuff like this, or is this kind of tick that box for you?
I think I think I'm sat here thinking, oh God, what else could I do that would be as exciting as that? And everything's going to be a bit of a letdown moving forward. But I'm sure I'll come round on that. I think what I did like was the camaraderie, and the fact that before I went in, you're sort of like sat in the hotel and you're kind of like checking everyone out to sort of see who's going to go in. And my perception or my judgment of people was completely wrong. I was like, oh my God, they're so good at that, or they, But
Yeah.
actually, or they're really intimidating. But actually, when I was in there with everybody, genuinely, hand on heart, I could say there was something to like about everybody in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely everybody. Whether you'd be best friends with everybody in there, I don't know. So I did really enjoy the camaraderie of being around people, and that's maybe something I don't get much of in my life at the moment. So, and it sort of made me think, like watching the kids play hockey this morning, actually it'd be really nice to go and get into a team sport again, or and actually have that, because with the riding, it is quite an individual sport. It's definitely awakened my sense of adventure, and I want to keep doing things, not necessarily massive things, or not necessarily staying away for a long time, but just keep living. Yeah, exactly. And just keep living, and make the most of being alive, and the fact that I can do it even at 41, which isn't, that old, but there will be a time when the body says, do you know what? Baby can't climb those stairs. Or so whilst I can do it, I really want to be able to continue doing that, and keep myself fit, because that is the one thing that has been quite new to me quite late in life. I just sort of coasted along, but actually the fitness and the mental health side of getting myself fit, keeping myself fit, the benefits of that have been huge. Yeah, in terms of whether I could find another challenge that's sort of similar, I don't think you ever could really. I mean, this is pretty well up there, wasn't it? But
there's lots of things out there. Very few that will perhaps be as heavily focused and or televised. But you're absolutely right. I always say to people, your secret wealth is in fact your health, and most people, as they get into their 30s, certainly into their 40s and their 50s, tend to see that drop away, and we can justify it with saying, oh, my friend's this, or the other mums and dads at the playground are having that. And I'm like, you really want to put that time into your body, and it's great that you've learned it not before it's too late, but you're incredibly fit. And I know you probably never class yourself as a role model, but you're extremely fit and healthy and vibrant and, attractive and all that sort of stuff. And you are, like you say, you're still very young in the grand scheme of things, but most people entering their 40s don't have that same kind of mindset. But I know you'll want to be able to run around with your grandkids in 15 years, so
absolutely.
That's it. And all of that is ultimately down to you. So many people put it off as old age, or they need to get the medication, or when they retire, and all of these sort of silly kind of connotations that we associate with getting older. But you don't stop training because you get older because you stop training. People always say to me, what is it you're training for? I'm like, I'm training for fucking life. That's what I'm training for. Even if I've not got an event coming up or something like that, I want my body to remain functional. It's there to serve me, and I only get one of them. You don't switch it out like a car or a bloody house or anything like that. You don't invest and you don't inherit a new one or anything like that. This is it. This is the one you've got. And I think you're a shining example of that.
Yeah, and I definitely, and I think I think you've got to look after it, and you've got to give it a helping hand, to get yourself through into golden years.
Well, it's the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, isn't it? If you put crap, I always say, if your body had a voice, and you said, hey, I want you to do all these things for me, and it goes, okay, yeah, sure, just make sure you give me A, B, C, and X, Y, Z, and I'm going to need some good food and some sleep and some hydration, and you just give it a pile of shit and some alcohol and whatever else, and then it goes, where's this deal? Do you know what I mean? What are you expecting from me? You've given me, it's like asking it to build a car, and you've given it one flat tire, some duct tape, and a bottle of Chardonnay, and go off you go then, and your body's like, I'm not going to achieve the things. Which one of us is kidding ourselves? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that sounds perhaps elitist,
although
I'm not
going to lie, I may have had a couple of gin and tonics over the weekend, and quite a lot of chocolate. But
I think you live in a healthier position of balance than probably I do.
Yeah, no, that's it. And I think that's what it's all about. It's about balance, isn't it? And making sure that you do enjoy life and enjoy the good things in life every now and again, but keep it in moderation, and get back on track when you can.
Look,
Definitely.
I absolutely loved being able to spend the time with you. You were one of those that I felt was really kind of on my kind of mindset, and you were, like I say, you'd had those experiences in life that had really given you a different perspective. So I felt really lucky to have you, and I felt most sort of structured and informed and safe and secure and confident when we had you as a lead recruit, because that was the kind of where I lived. You know what I mean? I like to be spoken to like that. I respond best to it. When some people are a little bit wishy-washy, I'm like, the fuck you on about? You know, just say it. You're not going to offend me. I'm not going to, turn around and cry. Just tell me what you want to happen. Because otherwise we let ourselves down as a group. And I absolutely love spending that time and looking after me all the way through the airport on the way back.
Pushing you down. I was a bit worried I was going to catch your leg on a table bench or something. And that's that's tough to come out like that. And I think when you do break you broke your body, didn't you, while you're out there? You will mend, you will recover, and I know that you'll put everything into your rehab. You've already said, and I love the positivity that you have with that. But it's tough to come out like that because you're always going to be thinking, what if it hadn't have happened? Would I have been there? They said
I was
themselves,
nowhere near ready to come out. I was not the best of anything at all, but my body was not suffering. My mind was good. I was just running on takeover, and to have blown the tendon out like that was really, really rough for me. And I almost felt like my body had let me down a little bit, which is tough because I almost feel like I give my body more than it needs. And perhaps there's a tale to be told in that. I think maybe I put my body through too much preparing for it. And I don't know. I'm sure I'll probably go over that in my head a million times. But I always say to people, people don't just watch when you succeed or anything like that. They watch when you fail as well. And I know we can't necessarily class it as a failure, but how do you take a setback? How do you take an injury? I've torn muscles and tendons and broke bones before, and they're real character building moments. They fucking suck, really suck, excuse my language. But I'm excited about that, and I'm certainly going to be flirting with the idea of going back and doing similar things because I love a comeback story.
No, definitely. And I think you should, sort of from my point of view, I feel similar. I know obviously you had a physical breakdown.
Yeah.
But in my head, my head had just had it. So in the same way, I feel like that you feel that your body had let you down. I feel that my head had let me down. And especially because I'd actually prepared my head so much. I was confident before I started that I would go in and that I would mentally be able to take the stress of it. And it would be my body that would let me down. So for me to come out with it completely the opposite way. And you know what? Initially, when I first came out, I was quite ashamed of it. I was like, I'm just not strong enough. Now I've actually come around to thinking, you know what? That's fine. That's where my limit is. And I've come to terms with it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing.
That's where your limit is at the minute. And equally,
exactly.
You'll have that post-traumatic growth where that's like a measuring stick for where you felt you could go to mentally. And now you can work on that. You can pick it apart. You can be happy with it because it's a hell of an achievement by itself.
Yeah.
But you can use it as a yardstick. It's not. I always say it's a comma. It's not a full stop.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, and I think it'll take a bit of time, but I think you are right, and that's where I'll head with it. I will definitely use it something to turn it around and come back stronger from it. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously, as you say, your body is all broken on you, and yet my head had broken on me. Even though I look like I'm completely unscathed, it's phenomenal pressure that when you're in there, and I don't think anybody would be able to realise or understand just that pressure when you're in there. And I feel like you say we only really got halfway there, didn't we? Halfway through, blimey, for the ones that are in there now, I'm sure it was tenfold. But
I'm jealous.
Yes, I am as well, and that's the thing. And I think that's the whole point of the course is like, however you come out, you're always going to feel like, what if I'd have still been in there, and that's hard. It's really, really tough. But you're an absolute pleasure to be with, and it was great having you there. And you're so positive and so supportive the whole way through. It was fabulous. So I feel really honoured to have been in there with you. So thank you.
Well, look, I look forward to everybody getting together. I know it's not going to come out for a bunch of months yet, and we'll release all of these episodes and all that sort of stuff after it comes out. But I really look forward to getting together, having a big cuddle with everybody, especially you. Hopefully meeting the boys one day, maybe, if I'm lucky enough, because I know you don't live too far away from me. We're not going to say where you do
down
live,
the road.
but we're not far away from each other. So I'd love to come up and maybe spend a day at the farm and bring the missus or whatever and do a bit of riding together.
Welcome anytime, absolutely.
I'll see you soon.
All right, bye. Bye-bye.
Firefighters Podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.